One of the biggest benefits to being a subscriber of this channel is the fact that you get to participate in the question and answer videos that I do every single week. So basically what I do is I take comments from the week prior and I go ahead and I put them into one video and I answer some of the most common questions or some of the outliers, some of the ones that just seem really interesting to answer. So make sure you're always commenting on my videos so that you have a chance to get your comment answered. All right, so let's go ahead and roll right into this week. So this is the week of 11/26, so November 26th. So I had a few videos that week. I'm gonna start with the one video called "The Keto Diet Creates Long-Term Results Due to Brain Changes." So this video touched on how the ketogenic diet actually affects our hypothalamus and basically our brain's ability to freeze in time certain metabolic responses, or how we actually respond to food or habit at a given point in time. Can literally allow us to make long-term changes. All right, so Bharat asks, he says, Thomas, in one of your videos, you roasted cauliflower at 180 degrees Celsius. Won't the veggies lose their nutrients when they're roasted at a high temp? Could you also clarify if nuts like cashews and peanuts can be roasted instead of soaking to drain the phytic acid, or will there be a loss of nutrients? And finally, what about meat? Is it a problem if we roast meat at a high temperature? Okay, so essentially, when you roast vegetables, yes, you do lose some nutrients, but you still end up with some of the minerals, you still end up with a lot of the fiber, you still end up with a lot of things that are gonna help you out. I mean, like when you roast cauliflower, you still get the diindolylmethane, you still get the indole-3-carbinol, the things that have the hormonal effect. Yeah, you lose some of the water-soluble vitamins that kind of evaporate and die off, but at the end of the day, it's better than no veggies at all. Then when it comes down to cashews and nuts, roasted is okay, but the thing is a lot of times with nuts, when you roast them, you are breaking down those polyunsaturated fats and you're oxidizing the fat. So you don't necessarily want to roast all your nuts. I would recommend going raw whenever possible, but soaking them, of course, is the best thing. And then with meats, yeah, you actually raise up a good point. You can, in effect, actually have some of the fats in meat get denatured when you cook at a high temperature, but generally speaking, they're pretty stable. Usually they're saturated fats, and usually those are a little bit more stable and can handle the high heat. The next question comes from someone named Nico. Okay, Nico asks, hi Thomas, I was wondering if it's possible to build muscle in a calorie deficit if you're doing keto and fasting. Nico, that's a good question. Depends when your calorie deficit is. So if your calorie deficit is day over day, if it's minute over minute, hour over hour, I hope you get what I'm going at with this. So basically, thermodynamics imply that you cannot build muscle or you cannot put on weight if you are in a deficit. But most people classify a deficit as day over day. So with fasting, for instance, you could be in a deficit for a majority of the day, but then you're in a surplus during the hour that you're eating. So in my opinion, you can be in a caloric surplus at a period of time which is going to allow you to build muscle. So if you are in a caloric surplus when you have a heightened level of mTOR, mammalian target rapamycin, or a heightened level of P60 or any of these other enzymes that are actually going to allow you to build more muscle, then you're in a good situation. So the short answer is yes, you can still build muscle if your calories are aligned in the right place when you're fasting. Okay, and then DWRST says, when doing intermittent fasting, will lion's mane from 4-sigmatic break a fast? So it depends which one you use. If you use their coffee, no. If you use their chocolate, it would. So normally I would say go ahead and have your lion's mane after you break a fast, nothing, no big deal at all. But if you want to just include it in your actual fasting period, you're going to want to make sure you just mix it with some coffee or get their prepackaged one that already comes with instant coffee, because that won't break a fast. Michelle Monterosa says, is the ketogenic diet okay for people with high cholesterol and high blood pressure? Okay, so full disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, so you have to ask your doctor about this. The downside is your doctor is probably anti-keto, like most doctors are, so they're probably going to tell you not to do it. Cholesterol is less of a concern on the keto diet. Blood pressure, it can vary. It can all depend because your blood volume can change, things like that, your overall plasma volume at least. So as far as cholesterol is concerned, you'll see a change in your cholesterol, but generally speaking, you'll become more efficient at utilizing fats, and the cholesterol is not really the problem you need to be concerned with quite as much. So I've seen a lot of people with high cholesterol have no change in their cholesterol, good or bad, when they go keto. That's not necessarily saying it's going to be the case for you. Okay, I can't pronounce this. Suripuria, I can't say that, I'm sorry, man. Does keto diet, intermittent fasting, and autophagy change our DNA setup? So basically, does it change gene expression? Some studies have shown that intermittent fasting can affect gene expression. So meaning it can actually change our DNA, it can change our RNA. To what degree, we don't really know yet. Usually there's long tail studies. Usually they're done on like nematodes, or they're done on fruit flies, things like that, where they have a shorter lifespan, where they can actually test these things and find a longer result or find a longer plan, see what's going to actually happen over a longer period of time. So jury is still kind of out on that. Okay, this next video was how to do a bone broth fast. So my bone broth fast starts December 16th. If you're watching this video after December 16th, I'm either doing it right now or I've already done it. So you're going to want to check out those videos. But my bone broth fast, I did a video that breaks down how to do a bone broth fast because I wanted people to participate with me when I do a 3-day bone broth fast. So I outlined kind of the benefits, how it works, and exactly how you should time it. So the first question comes from Aniel Carbajal. Sorry, I'm not always the best with these names. It says, what about your water intake during a bone broth fast? Or do you only consume bone broth? No, you can consume water, you can consume sodium, you're totally good there. Don't worry about that. Ritu says, is it helpful for sugar detox and to reduce cravings? Any period of fasting, even with bone broth, is going to help reduce ghrelin levels. You're gonna have a substantial decrease in ghrelin levels, so your hunger response and your cravings are going to go down just as a result. Anna says, you mentioned that a bone broth fast might be better than a full fast in some instances. What instances would those be? Usually if you're someone that suffers with any kind of GI distress, it's a little bit easier on the gut. You also might find that it's just easier to go into a bone broth fast because you feel like you're consuming something. A little bit of collagen, a little bit of calories. It's an easy introduction. You still get a lot of benefits of fasting, but you don't have to completely abstain from food. All right, then Matthew Terry says, what is the recommendation as far as consumption during the fast? In other words, how much bone broth should you drink per day? Yeah, I'll outline that when I actually start the fast. But in terms of just for general purposes, I did actually break it down in that video. So you want to have a good amount in the morning, a good amount in the afternoon, and a larger amount with dinner. So you basically, depending on your weight, usually 8 ounces, 12 ounces, or 8 ounces, 16 ounces, all depends on you, but just go with a little bit more during dinner. Okay, Emmanuel says, if I'm trying to bulk, should I be doing this fast? Emmanuel, whether you are bulking or cutting, it's always a good idea to do some periods of fasting. It's good for your body. It's good to reset. It's good for the immune system. It's good for your endocrine system, excuse me. So it's good overall. So, you might take a period of time during that fast where you're not building muscle, but at the end of the day, when you come out of the fast, you're going to have a lot more results. So I would go for it. If you're on the fence at all, go for it. Court says, you mentioned low acid coffee in the morning. What about low caffeine / herbal tea instead? Yeah, you can totally do that. I have no problem with herbal tea. Just make sure sometimes it has little chunks of fruit and stuff in it and try to give it sweetness, but you just want to be careful with that. Sometimes that extra fruit in there, that does have a couple calories and does have some fructose in it, so just be careful there. Okay, this next video was my keto and fasting transformation and why I started this channel. This video pretty much broke the internet. It was definitely a record breaker, literally the most amount of views in the first hour of any of my videos I've ever done. Talked about my story, how I was 280 pounds, how I lost 100 pounds, how keto and fasting were a huge part of it, and why I started this channel overall. And it was basically because I hit 1 million subscribers, I wanted to give back and kind of share my story a little bit more. So Grant Kindness asks, do you have any suggestions on what to do for the keto rash? I'm 100 pounds overweight and I felt wonderful at keto. My joints feel so much better, but unfortunately, I developed a horrible itchy rash and I had to go off keto to get it to go away. I started back keto and it came back. A lot of times it ends up being a histamine response. So like if you're eating a lot of meat, a lot of times this can happen, especially if you're eating leftovers, because what happens is this heterocyclic amines actually break down. So you've got amines, which if you've ever heard of histamines before or antihistamines, they all work together. That's why antihistamines you take when you're itchy, yada, yada. So you have amines, and then like usually when you cook meat, you have heterocyclic amines. The long story short is these amines will actually resurface and cause some issues within your body and restructure if you continually reheat leftovers. So this is something to be aware of. People that are more sensitive on the keto diet definitely experience that if they increase their protein intake more than they were at before. So watch your protein. See if, when you're on keto, are you eating more protein than you used to eat? That's usually the telltale reason behind the keto rash. Sarah Thompson says, what's the fat adaptation things that allows some carby foods like pizza? Can you go more in depth on how you achieve this? And is part of it that you have so much muscle and work out so often? Because most of us keto people will never even be close to this. No, it doesn't have to do with the muscle. I mean, the muscle definitely helps your resting metabolic rate. Don't get me wrong, that allows you to get away with a little bit more for sure. But when it comes down to fat adaptation, studies have shown it takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 18 weeks to start getting fat adapted. This is simply where your mitochondria develops the ability to utilize fats a little bit better. So it's a pretty simple process. Actually, it's a very complex process, but it's simple in theory. Basically, the mitochondria becomes efficient at using fats. So when you're in a situation where you have fats and carbs present, your body may start to use those fats more if you've become fat adapted. So it's not like you can go ahead and just eat pizza all the time, but it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility. It's more so about strategically being able to implement carbs at the right time, which I do go into some more detail in some of my other videos. Mike Fellows says, new to the keto diet, about a month. I saw where you talked about not always being in keto and doing 6 weeks, then breaking for a couple days. Is that something you do as a new to keto dieter or not much till later? Just trying to learn, and on those breaks, would you eat whatever amount of carbs? Yeah, so I recommend when you first start keto, you go all the way, balls to the wall for a couple of months, 2-3 months. Commit, really commit, like 60 days of full on committed to keto, no cheat meals. What that's gonna do is it's gonna allow your body to get fat adapted, and it's gonna really make a big difference. Then you're a little bit more fair game to start having cheat meals once every few weeks or so. And on those cheat days, no, you still want to keep it very, very clean. No more than like 130, 140 grams of carbs. Don't go totally crazy. You want to still keep it controlled and nice low glycemic carbs. I should do a video on what you eat on a non-keto day, so it's a good idea for a video. Okay, Fua Ann Lee says, is it okay to eat fish oil pills along with a small meal to break your fast? I don't really have much of a problem with this. It just depends. If you're consuming carbs, then you don't want to be having your fish oil pill along with your carbs because you're still having an insulin spike from the carbs and then you're consuming fats from the fish, even though a small amount. And right when you break your fast, you're super insulin sensitive. So I wouldn't really suggest that. I would have fish oil pills maybe with your second meal after breaking a fast. But by and large, it's a pretty nominal amount. It's a pretty small amount of fat. I'm not too worried about it. But I would say next meal would be the best way to do it, or just right before you go to bed. At the end of the day, your body's just gonna absorb it. It doesn't need to happen right when you break a fast. So this sums up this week's Q&A. So I do wanna make sure that you guys post comments down below. I will respond to some of the comments that are in this video, and my team and I do our very, very best to respond to comments anyway that are on the videos, but sometimes there's just interesting ones that spark some interesting conversation that I wanna put into a video. So I hope that you enjoy these style of videos, and please, please, please keep it locked in on our channel so you can always have fresh content Tuesday, Fridays, and Sundays at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And forgive the nasally voice. Yes, I too get sick because I'm human. I'll see you in the next video.